Professor Marc Lamont at Temple University gave a strident speech at the United Nations on Palestinian solidarity. This speech, everything in it I love. Everything in the speech was right, 100% right, and he was fired from CNN for it. I'm going to give you a part of the speech that people complained about the most, but his basic argument here, I don't know how anybody can disagree with it. Now, you have the Zionist who says any support of Palestine is anti-Semitic, and they use this in the same way that somebody would say anybody who says something against me is racist. Oh, you're racist. The person can be talking about the sky being blue. It's a way of delegitimizing the argument. It's putting out propaganda to gut the individual as opposed to what the individual is saying. There are some people who are anti-Semitic. There are some people who are racist, but it's not necessarily Marc Lamont. And it may not be the person who's talking about the sky being blue. The Israeli thing is weird to me. It's criticism of a state. Just like any state can be criticized, be it a state in Africa, a state of the United States, the state of Canada, the state of Britain. Any of these places can be criticized. But Israel has a unique disposition in America that criticizing Israel is somehow tantamount to criticizing Jews, which is utter nonsense. This is my point. You can stand by Palestinian rights and solidarity of Palestinians seeing that their land is being stolen and they've been occupied for the past 70 years. Take a look at this. If the media was around today, or if it was around, let's say, 500-600 years ago, 400 years ago, 500-600 years ago, and you could spotlight the Native American population being wiped out, the genocide that's taken place, I would suspect that it would look a lot like what's taking place in Israel and Palestine now. You have a legal edifice that jumps up around it, tries to legitimize what is taking place, and tries to control the language of what is taking place so people can't call it what it is. You're committing genocide on a population that was here first. Take a look at this picture. This is what Palestine was. Furtherance, further, and further. Britain gave somebody else's land to Israelis, to Jews, after the First World War, but definitely in high gear after the Second World War. There were people already living there in the area of Palestine. The Israelis essentially put the population in ghettos, and every so often routinely attacks those ghettos. Now, whatever justification they want to use for it, it's an occupying force that is angry that the people who are being occupied complains about it. They've gone to corporal punishment. They've gone to allowing the shooting of kids if they're throwing rocks, putting kids in prison, torture, abuse. We've just come off, over 2,000 people shot in the legs, the groins, the head, many of which killed, over hundreds of people being killed, many of which were part of the press, or many of which were part of medical services. Nonviolent resistance. Come on, call it what it is. There's one power that's taking the land of somebody else, and they're supported a lot by the United States. Now, let's take a listen to Marc Lamont's speech, the part that the people complained about the most. And in listening to Marc Lamont's speech, and the part they claimed about the most, I want to talk about that, and I want to show you some of the criticism that Marc Lamont received for this.
So as we stand here on the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the tragic commemoration of the Nakba, we have an opportunity to not just offer solidarity in words, but to commit to political action, grassroots action, local action, and international action that will give us what justice requires. And that is a free Palestine from the river to the sea.
You can imagine that Zionists hated the entirety of the speech because he was talking about Palestinian solidarity. You can imagine some of the hardcore Israelis hated the speech because he was talking about Palestinian solidarity and the fact that they were a colonizing force. But nothing he said that was wrong. And jumping on the river to the sea comment, they're trying to make this argument that this is a Hamas slogan, and that because of this is a Hamas slogan, he's supporting these kind of violent upheavals. Now, Marc Lamont has always been strident as a single state. Now, under that single state, however, the birth or the value of a Palestinian is the same value of an Israeli under the law. Meaning the legal edifice doesn't necessarily make a distinction in this case. Both people are equal. In the country that you have now, you have a apartheid state where they've declared themselves a Jewish state, missing the fact that many of the people that live there are not Jews. And again, as I show this map, they've just taken more and more land. They've just taken more and more land. Let's take a look at some of the people who are complaining about this. Well, as an African American, I have a particular sensitivity to this. Having a tragedy happen to you doesn't necessarily allow you to commit atrocities yourself. Meaning, I can be sympathetic to what happened in World War II, but it doesn't necessarily justify morally or legally that group that was so abused to go and abuse somebody else using similar tactics that was used on it. So essentially putting a group of people in a ghetto and taking the land in order to make space for themselves for this one Jewish state. It would be like a band of African Americans leaving, let's say, Richmond, Virginia, the home of the Confederacy, and taking over an area of Canada and putting a population in prison camps with every so often killing and attacking that particular population. It would be nonsense. There is no moral justification for it. And you can make whatever legal arguments you want. Laws are just stuff that people come up with. It doesn't necessarily make it correct. It doesn't make it correct. Let's take a look at some of the criticism about it. As an African American, I am extremely sympathetic to this. It is hard to know the history of African Americans in this country and turn a blind eye to people who are under similar under horrific conditions in their own land where they are. Like, it makes me more sympathetic to people abroad, especially living under an occupation, not less. I would imagine Marc Lamont also has a certain thing in him that looks at the world in this kind of internationalist way and saying that the value of one child equals to the value of another child. And if you are subjugating a population, yes, as a state, I'm going to be against you with that. Now, if the roles were reversed, if Palestinians were subjugating Israelis, I would feel the exact same way, this time on behalf of the Israelis. It has nothing to do with them being Jews. This has everything to do with them being Israelis, meaning state itself and the actions of the state. Let's take a look at some of the comments that were made attacking Marc Lamont here. So, let's start at the top. And by the way, just so we're clear, the river to the sea comment preceded Hamas. It preceded Hamas. Marc Lamont even makes that point, that it preceded Hamas. Right here. Right here. Nothing in this slogan indicates a calling for destruction of Israel. It's certainly calling for an end to the occupation, Kelly said, noting that the belief is shared among people all over the world, including some living in Israel, which refers to the river to the Jordan and Mediterranean Sea that drew so much, has been a standard slogan used in demonstrations for Palestinian rights and self-determination for a century. This preceded Hamas. This preceded Hamas. Let's look at the critics. Dan Shapiro, the former Obama ambassador to Israel who now lives in Israel and works for a quasi-official think tank, was disgusted by the Hill statement. Until today, I've never heard of Marc Lamont and don't watch it on cable TV. This is disgusting. No, the murdering of kids, the murdering and subjugation of a population, that's not disgusting at all. That's perfectly okay. We powered by our own hubris and the weapons that the United States gives us, can brutally, militarily steal land that belonged to somebody else. And we can codify it into law. That's not disgusting at all. Calling reference to it, saying that this is what's taking place, that's the part that's disgusting. You're a clown. You're an utter clown. Calling for the elimination of Israel is anti-Semitic, and being thankfully futile does Palestinians no favors. He didn't call for the elimination of Israel. Now, if you want to play with words, and if you want to say that calling for a single state solution is tantamount to calling for the destruction of Israel, then okay. But calling for the single state solution is essentially saying everybody is equal under the law. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. It sounds perfectly good to me. Let's keep going. Where are some of the critiques? Because he got a lot of defenders on this, so I don't want you to think that he didn't. Israeli Consul General for New York welcomed the news and called Hill an anti-Semitic. That's amazing. Saying you want equal rights is tantamount to you being anti-Semitic. That's amazing. Israel's Consul General and New York Ambassador Danny Dayton welcomed the news of Hill's dismissal. I welcome CNN decision today to end Mark Hill's association with the network, he said in a statement. He also called for Americans to stand strong against the dangerous anti-Semitic idea that Jews cannot legitimately live as free people in a homeland. You've stolen that land! You've stolen that land! On your commemorating thing in the Holocaust Museum, where the Holocaust Museum makes reference to, we went to our new land. Great. Was anybody living in that land when you got to that land? And if that answer is yes, then that tantamounts to you stealing that land. For fuck's sake, I find this Orwellian, the way that they're talking about this. You have an occupying force, but the issue here is not the occupiers. It's not the killing of people who are protesting the fact that they're being occupied. No, the issue here is that you're saying something about it. This puts me in mind of the cop killings, where a cop would shoot a black person, and you'd have these people saying police lives matter. The issue here is not the fact that the cop murdered somebody, it's the fact that the person had the temerity to essentially try to live in a free society. And the people who are bringing attention to it, those are the people that are the problem. So taking a knee is tantamount to shitting on America. I would agree with you that cop murders are an American tradition, fair enough, but bringing attention to it is not the same thing, or is not worse than that. Let's put it that way. It's not worse than the killings themselves. I find this level to be amazing. And the idea that CNN will back them on this, Wolf Blitzer was a raving Zionist. There's debates with him and Noam Chomsky when Wolf Blitz was a lot younger. He still had that dead-eye look on his face, this kind of pale stare that he would make into the camera as he was trying to process whatever CNN was giving him to read. He was able to function on CNN perfectly fine. This gives a very clear perspective on CNN, meaning biased, meaning utterly and completely biased. If you're going to fire him for that speech, you are being biased. You're perfectly okay with having coverage of people who are pro-Israel, but somebody who's critical of Israel, you fire the guy? It's nonsense. And right here, I love this part. The Zionist Organization of America links Hill comments to an attack on the Pittsburgh synagogue. Oh, I knew that was going to come up at some point. They killed 11 people, saying anti-Semitic Hill, demanding that Israel violence destruction, but he never said that. He never said that. At no point did he ever say that. He never said that. He's talking about grassroots movement to essentially to hold Israel accountable for what it's doing. I mean, for fuck's sake, you've stolen somebody else's land. You're an occupying force. I'm sorry. I understand that the kids that are brought up in that society, they're brought up in a society where they're brainwashed. And to some degree, they want to keep what they have. I also understand that there is no situation where this is going to be resolved while the United States is being uneven-handed in this. You have a country that is giving billions of dollars, a country that has nuclear weapons, and you have the United States who's pretending that they're in negotiations while simultaneously backing Israel up in everything that Israel does. That's not a negotiation. That's not anything. And it allows Netanyahu to continue to grab more and more land. I mean, for fuck's sake. But CNN fires Mark Hill. That tells you everything about CNN. Solidarity to Mark Hill on this. Everything he said in that speech was right. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.